How to fall asleep fast. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Andrew Kim. I'm a board-certified psychiatrist, and as a psychiatrist, one of the main issues that I help patients troubleshoot is the topic of insomnia. Insomnia is just a fancy term for having difficulties with falling asleep or difficulties with staying asleep during the night. So today we're going to review some sleep hygiene tips on how to fall asleep fast and hopefully stay asleep during the night. Now, this topic of sleep is so important because getting adequate and quality sleep is so crucial for making sure that you have enough energy during the day. It helps improve your focus and concentration to reduce the risk of things like car accidents. It helps reduce your cardiac risk, and it also helps boost things like your immune system. Now, it's appropriate in some circumstances for people to get prescription medications as sleep aids, but if possible and if it's a safe enough situation, I always tend to prefer and try to use the first course of action as being behavioral and lifestyle interventions. It's these behavioral changes and these lifestyle changes that we refer to as sleep hygiene. So today we're going to go through some sleep hygiene tips on how to fall asleep fast and hopefully stay asleep longer, and we're going to break them down into three categories: daytime tips, evening tips, and tips for your bedtime routine. So let's jump right in. So let's start off with the daytime tips. Daytime tip number one, try to limit your caffeine intake. Now, those of you who saw my energy drink video, you guys know I love my coffee, I love my energy drinks, it's a personal vice of mine. But you should really try to limit the total intake because caffeine is a stimulant. It can keep you up at night, it can cause insomnia. And you should also try to limit how late in the day you drink this. I personally recommend trying not to drink caffeine after lunchtime if possible, for a couple of reasons. Number one, when you actually consume caffeine, you may feel that energy perk within the first half hour or hour of drinking it, but the reality is caffeine has a half-life of 3 to 5 hours. So what's a half-life? Half-life is the amount of time it'll take for half of that substance to leave your body. So in 3 to 5 hours, you still have half the caffeine that you consumed floating around in your system. So if I drank a coffee at 6 p.m., from 9 to 11 p.m., I still may have half of it there, and that's what may be keeping you up and preventing you from falling asleep. The second reason is caffeine is a diuretic. What does that mean? A diuretic is something that makes you go pee. So now you have something that may be keeping you up, and it may be waking you up in the middle of the night to go pee. So try to limit your caffeine and try not to drink it too late in the day. Daytime tip number two, try to get some exercise. Numerous studies repeatedly show year after year that getting healthy routine exercise can help you fall asleep faster, get a longer duration of sleep, and importantly, get more deep phase sleep. Every night you go through different cycles of sleep, but importantly, you need to get some deep phase sleep, and exercise can help you do that. It's those deep phases of sleep that help you boost your immune system, repair your muscles, and reduce stress. So get out there and get some exercise. Daytime tip number three, trying to limit and avoid naps. Now look, if you need to nap to get refreshed, to get focused, and to be safe and to be able to function, go ahead and nap. But if you're napping just because your sleep is out of whack and now napping has just become a part of your routine, if it's not coming down to a safety issue, really try to avoid naps if possible, because the more that you nap, it's going to make it harder to fall asleep and get adequate deep phase sleep during the night. So if you have to do it, try to limit it to about 20 or 30 minutes if possible, but again, if it's not coming down to a safety issue, try to avoid it if you can. Daytime tip number four, addressing your medical issues and taking a look at your medications and supplements. First of all, please, always consult with your physician or qualified medical professional when addressing these issues regarding your medical conditions and your medications. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, a number of medical conditions, whether it be psychiatric or physical in nature, can have insomnia or difficulties falling asleep as a symptom. Things like clinical depression, clinical anxiety, uncontrolled acid reflux, uncontrolled asthma, all of these things can contribute to difficulties falling asleep. Now, you also need to consider the medications that you're taking. And again, always consult with your physician or qualified medical professional. But think about whether there is a relationship between when you started on that medication and if there were any changes in your sleep patterns. Now, if you think back hard and you say, I already had sleep problems, and when I started on this new medication, nothing changed, maybe there is no relationship. But if you notice that there was even more difficulty with falling asleep or staying asleep, you should ask your prescriber if that particular medication has any known side effects like insomnia, and if there's something that could be done about that. You also need to consider the natural supplements and natural remedies that you're taking as well. Just because something is marketed as natural doesn't mean it's side effect free. For example, St. John's wort is basically nature's Prozac, and just like Prozac, St. John's wort can lead to insomnia. Also, many supplements contain hidden sources of caffeine. So weight loss supplements tend to contain things like green tea extract, black tea extract, guarana, or they just label it as a proprietary blend and hide a lot of caffeine in them. So if you're on some of these weight loss supplements, take a look and see how much caffeine is actually hidden in there and if it's contributing to your insomnia and difficulties with sleeping. Now, let's move on to some evening tips. Evening tip number 1, watching your diet. Now, eating healthy, well-balanced meals are an important part of any healthy lifestyle. But today, let's focus on dinner in particular. And let's focus on two things, the timing of dinner and the content of your dinner. Now, in terms of timing, I recommend not eating too close to your bedtime. I generally say try not to eat within 2 to 3 hours of going to sleep. Now, in terms of the content, I generally recommend not eating too large of a volume or portion, nothing too greasy or fatty, and nothing too spicy. So why do I make all these recommendations? Basically, you want to reduce the risk of experiencing heartburn or acid reflux at bedtime. If you eat too close to your bedtime and you're eating too much and something that's too greasy, you're going to be getting your stomach juices flowing and very active. And when you're laying down, you may end up feeling a burning sensation coming up the center of your chest. And you may feel like I need to sit up to feel more comfortable to make that sensation go away. Basically, if you don't follow these tips, you may be putting yourself at risk for acid reflux or heartburn. Another thing to consider is, for people who already have acid reflux or heartburn, if you have this as a chronic issue, sometimes a dry cough can actually be a subtle sign of uncontrolled acid reflux. So if you're out there and you've had an unexplained dry cough at night, think about it. Is it related to your acid reflux? Evening tip number 2, do something calming and relaxing. Now, you might be saying, duh, but I can't tell you how many of my patients don't take the time, even a few minutes, to do something calming and relaxing in the evening. The reason I emphasize this so much is because there is a true mind-body connection. And if you're not mentally and emotionally calm, you're going to be physically restless, and it's going to be that much harder to fall asleep. And you don't want to do that battle when you're under the covers. You want to be in a calm state before you even hit the sack. So whatever it is, whether it's taking a hot bath, reading a book, just doing some quiet time to reflect, clear your mind, get yourself calm, get rid of those self-criticisms, try to get rid of those regrets. If you have to plan out the day for the next day, plan it now. Don't plan it while you're in bed. So clear your mind, get yourself calm, even before you go under the covers. Evening tip number 3. Try to reduce your exposure to artificial lights during the evening hours. Every evening, our brain releases a spike of a chemical called melatonin. Now, it's this spike of melatonin that signals our brain and our bodies to wind down, calm down, get ready for bed. But this spike can be impacted by our exposure to sources of light. So if you have things like blackout curtains to reduce the light in your bedroom, if you have dimmable lights or dimmable lamps, try to dim your lights in the evening hours if possible. And I know this one is tough, but try to limit your exposure to sources of light from the television, from your tablets, and yes, your cell phones. Try not to binge watch them too much in the evening hours, and especially when you're in bed. Now, let's move on to some bedtime tips. Bedtime tip number 1, limit your alcohol intake before bedtime. Now, I know many people and many patients of mine say, Dr. Kim, I just have a glass of red or white right before I go to sleep and I'm good to go. And yes, while it's true that in the short term and with limited use, alcohol can help you fall asleep faster, with chronic use of alcohol as a sleep aid, this will eventually lead to disturbed sleep and poor quality sleep and less total amount of sleep. Now, why is that? Well, it's because if you use alcohol chronically as a sleep aid, it basically messes with your sleep cycles. It makes you more prone to wake up as you transition from one stage of sleep to the next, and it also prevents you from getting that good, deep phase, quality, restorative sleep. So you have more awakenings, and it prevents you from getting that deep phase, quality sleep. And it's a separate topic, but you also don't want to develop a tolerance, because many people will eventually say, Dr. Kim, before one glass would do it, now it takes two, now it takes three, and it becomes a slippery slope. Bedtime tip number 2, set the temperature of your house or your bedroom cooler at bedtime. Now, at night, our bodies cool down a little bit before we go to sleep. And if it's too warm, you're kind of fighting against that process, and it can keep you up. Most sleep doctors and sleep foundations recommend an average temperature of about 65 degrees Fahrenheit. I know you say that sounds pretty cold, so play around with it a little bit and see what's comfortable for you. But basically, in general, you want it a little bit cooler than room temperature. At our household, it's about 68 degrees every night. Now, if you have a smart thermostat, just set it and forget it so you don't have to remember each night. Bedtime tip number 3, the separation of space. So what do I mean by that? The bedroom should be for 2 things and 2 things only: sleep and sex. That's right. Those are the only 2 things you should be doing in the bedroom. Don't bring in mail and read stressful bills. Don't bring in work. Don't watch TV. It should be for sleep and for sex. This is your sanctuary of relaxation and good vibes. So bottom line, don't bring in distractions to the bedroom. Bedtime tip number 4. I know this is going to be challenging for a lot of you out there. Disconnect from your cell phone. Disconnect from social media. Now, technology, the internet, social media, they're great, but they're also filled with garbage and with crap, and it becomes a rabbit hole and a time suck, especially when you're bored at night. You don't need all those notifications, alerts, beeps, vibrations happening all night long, exposing you to extra artificial light and waking you up in the middle of the night. So use your built-in Do Not Disturb function or another app to allow urgent calls and messages to come through, but otherwise, turn off those notifications, silence your phone, unplug, and disconnect. If you disconnect from social media for a few hours, you will survive. I promise you. Bedtime tip number 5. Don't stare at the clock. Don't stare at the clock. And if that means you have to move the clock to a different position on the wall or turn your alarm clock the other way, go ahead and do it. Because if you're watching this video, that means you're having trouble falling asleep at the start of the night or having trouble falling asleep in the middle of the night when you wake up. And the last thing you need is to stare at the clock obsessively, build up your frustration, and get more anxious that you're never going to get back to sleep or never fall asleep. So don't stare at the clock and move it if you have to. Well, some of you out there who are watching are saying, well, Dr. Kim, I'm already on sleep meds. Don't you have any tips for me? Well, yes, I do. Tip number 6, don't fight against your sleep medications. Now, I know too many patients who are taking sleep medications, whether it's Ambien, Sonata, clonazepam, Valium, who basically tell me these meds, they don't even touch me. But inevitably, I ask them, walk me through your bedtime routine and tell me exactly what you do. And too often, I'll hear, I take my medication, and then I go downstairs to fix myself something to eat, I go watch TV, or I go on my phone for hours and browse social media. Basically, these individuals are fighting against the intended purpose of their medication. A lot of these prescription sleep aids are designed to help you fall asleep faster and kick in within the first 30 minutes to 1 hour of taking them, and they spike in that time frame. So if you're doing something active and you're not in bed, you're not relaxed, you're not trying to go to sleep, you may miss that window of when those medications kick in and are at their peak. So bottom line, be ready to go to sleep, go under the covers, and close your eyes right after you take your meds because you don't want to fight against your sleep medications. So I hope that you found this video helpful and you can use at least one, if not more, of these tips to help you make some conservative changes to help you fall asleep faster and hopefully stay asleep longer. Now, unfortunately, there are just no shortcuts. All of these gimmicks, these gadgets, these so-called miracle cures, they're not going to work in the long run. The key is healthy lifestyle changes and healthy sleep hygiene habits. That is the key. If you're out there right now saying, Dr. Kim, I've legitimately tried all of these sleep hygiene tips to the best of my ability, and I still can't fall asleep, I still don't get enough sleep, and I think I need some prescription sleep medications. Stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, because one of my upcoming videos will be about prescription sleep medications. I will give you a blunt and honest explanation about the potential risks, the potential benefits, and some of the concerns I have in regards to their safety. So if you're watching me right now on your phone, on your tablet, while you're in bed when you should be sleeping, subscribe, and then turn it off, turn me off, be healthy, be well, get some sleep. Dr. Kim, I'm gonna go to sleep too. It's pretty late.